Mr. President, good morning. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. We're going to jump.
Well, you've been very nice to me. I appreciate it. So let's get going.
All right. Well, you're busy every day, so much going on. Let's start with what many people believe should be an easy thing to get done, securing our elections. But the Save America Act still stuck. Senate apparently wants to go on vacation for a month. Obviously, this is a big issue for you. What are your thoughts?
It's hardly believable, actually. I would think that of all the things in the world today, that maybe the easiest thing to get approved would be voter ID with a photo and would be proof of citizenship. If you just took those two elements, I would say that may be the easiest thing I can think of. If you ask me for what would be the easiest thing to get approved, I would say voter ID. I would say proof of citizenship. And that includes Democrats, because if you look at the polls, they're 87% for everybody, including Democrats. They're 98% for Republicans. And I'm trying to figure out who the 2%. So I would be, I am amazed that the Senate can't get that approved.
You know, voter ID is even on the ballot in California. It's expected to pass there. So even the bluest of blue states, election integrity matters. I have a question for you. What if you made it clear from now until Election Day that any non-citizen that cast a ballot would be deported for violating federal law, period?
Well, I think that's fine. I'd be okay with it. I'd be okay with it. It's actually a good idea. I'm going to mark it down. I think that's fine because you have plenty of them. Our voting system is strictly third world. Look at the 2020 election, what happened there, all the criminality. And now you're seeing it. Now it's coming out in spades. But they knew it then. Everybody knew then that the election was rigged. And look what happened to the kid in California, where all of a sudden they found all those mail-in ballots came in. He had no chance of losing to her. In fact, she was crying, the third person that nobody ever heard of. She was crying that she lost. Oh, that's so terrible. Then all of a sudden, like a long time after the election was over, they said a lot of ballots have been mailed in. You know, it's third world stuff. He didn't lose. He won. He came in at least second, but he should be in the runoff. She's a total no name. Nobody knows who she is. And all of a sudden, there was a big groundswell for her after the election was over. It was a rigged election.
You look at what happened here in the state of Michigan, where I live, where you just visited. Manufacturing of voters in Muskegon, Michigan. Normally 250 folks would come in a session. 10,000 came in. It was a pay-to-play scheme, wasn't it? I mean, you revealed all this.
Well, take a look at 2020 in Detroit. They had more votes cast than they had people. Okay? How about that one? By a lot. Very few people voted. They had more votes cast than they had people. So the people came in, but the ballots were far more than the people that they had. Detroit is one of the real bad places in terms of voting. Yeah. One of the, maybe the worst, but Philadelphia is really bad. Los Angeles is very bad. You got bad places. Chicago is very bad. Crooked elections. We have third world elections.
Let me ask you about the DSA and the socialists upsetting the political left with radical candidates that they seem to hate America, sir. How dangerous, though, are these people? They get made fun of by people on the right, but it seems dangerous to me. When you look at these far left socialist candidates, what do you think?
Well, that's the way it begins. And, you know, I always said I'd be a great communist because I could sell better than people. I'd say everybody gets a free house, everybody gets no rent, everybody gets free food. We'll open a store like they're trying to open in New York. They're spending millions and millions of dollars, the world's most expensively built store ever. And they hand out food to everybody. That's the way it begins. And it's very seductive for people. They don't know that, and the Republicans don't do well with it because you have to explain what happens. That in a year from now, when everything crashes, you lose your house, you lose your family, you lose your money. You end up being beaten up because you have no police. You have no police. You have no ICE. You have no borders. You have a country that's a disaster, and it only takes a year. But somebody has to explain that. You can't just let it go on. Somebody has, because it's very seductive to say, "I'll give you a free house."
Do you think
that's what happens?
Do you think it's helping Republicans in the midterms? I mean, obviously having candidates that are so deeply flawed and not connected with Democrats, Republicans, or independents? Does it help
I
your?
don't think the Republicans running against each other are necessarily focused on it. They'll focus on that during the general election. But,
Sure.
you don't have Republicans talking that way. And so therefore, with the Republicans, they want to be MAGA. The big thing is to be MAGA.
Yeah.
And MAGA is the whole deal. The Republican Party basically is all MAGA now. And so they don't talk that way. But where it will come in is when they're facing these lunatics, they have to be very strong. You have to let them know that it'll be a very short-lived high.
So let's shift gears. The return of manufacturing in America. It's been a focus for you in your first term, certainly in your second term. And recently you've made stops in places like Pennsylvania, Georgia, like I said, most recently at the GM Proving Grounds in Michigan. And by the way, I was there. I'm going to tell you something about that event. It was packed all the way to the back of the room, and that was a big room. Blue-collar workers, working people. Have you turned the Republican Party into the party of the working class?
I think so. The Republican Party is a much bigger party than it was, let's say, 10 years ago. When I started, the Republican Party was a whole different ballgame. It was a whole different ballgame. Now it's a bigger party, a much more powerful party. It's the party of the worker. It's the party of a lot of people. It's the party of common sense. More than anything else, it's the party of common sense. It's really amazing. It's really amazing to see what happened. And we should win. Typically you don't win when you're president. Nobody knows exactly why. We're going to have to do a psychological test. But when the president, no matter how good a job, because we've done a great job, we have more jobs being created now. You saw that at that event. We have more auto plants, more plants generally than at any time in the history of our country. We have $19.2 trillion being invested. That's 10 times, 20 times more than Biden had.
Yeah.
Think of that. It's 20 times more than Biden had. And there's never been anything like it. Now, that'll start to show when these factories and these plants start opening up in a year.
Those people look at you as a friend, as somebody fighting for them. I mean, that room, look, they were packed to the walls. They were enthusiastic. They believe in the return of manufacturing. They believe in what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, remember Obama said we'll never be a manufacturing country again. He's wrong. And they're the great jobs. Those jobs are the great jobs. And you look at what's going on. I mean, Toyota just announced that they're moving a big plant into the United States, the biggest in the world, I think it's going to be. They're moving out of Mexico. Companies are moving out of Canada. Look, they stole our companies, our car companies, years ago. Japan, if you look at South Korea, Germany, they stole our companies. 57% of our car business was stolen. It's all coming back. Nobody can believe. Now it's coming back because of tariffs and because of the election, but because of tariffs. And if you build here, you have no tariffs. If you build outside, you got big tariffs. It's very simple.
Speaking of manufacturing, I want to ask you about REAlloy. I think that's how you say the company name in Kentucky, going full steam ahead to put America back in the race to dominate on rare earth elements. Incredibly important, your partnership with you and your administration.
Well, you're right. And that's one company. We have many, many companies doing it. With magnets, it's a thing called magnets, which are very important. And there are many, many people involved in that. We got the rare earth business moving. And we have a lot of rare earth. The processing is the problem, not the rare earth. The rare earth isn't that rare, if you want to know the truth. It's all over the place. And the processing. So that's one company doing a very good job, but we have a lot of them. Within 12 months, we're going to have more rare earth than anybody thought possible.
Let me ask you about something that happened yesterday that I thought was embarrassing, and I'm sure you caught some of it. Anthony Fauci taking the Fifth Amendment 111 times. This is a guy that was on TV through COVID on the cover of magazines, writing in his own diaries how he was the most famous person in the world. And yet behind the scenes, he didn't believe what he was saying. And he said in an interview recently, or back in 2022, that he would answer any question, anytime, be the punching bag. And yet, when given the opportunity, Anthony Fauci took the fifth 111 times. Don't you find that a bit shocking?
Well, his lawyers told him to do that. He probably did the right thing from a legal perspective. but I will say that, he was there from the 1980s on, and I inherited him. And if you remember, he was very strongly against masks, and all of a sudden he changed his mind. And he did a lot of things. He was very, very powerfully against some things, and then all of a sudden it changed. And he became really much better known during Biden, because Biden put him in a much higher position than I had him in. He wanted to close up the entire country. He was against Operation Warp Speed, which turned out to be one of the most incredible. A lot of people think it's the greatest thing I've done, Operation Warp Speed. I could also say the military, rebuilding the military and Space Force and everything else. But people talk about Operation Warp Speed as a legendary accomplishment. But Fauci was against so many different things. And as I got to know him, I got to rely on him less and less and less. Then when I left, Biden took him and made him like the king. And he didn't do it. And remember this, more people died during the Biden administration than during the Trump, by a lot. And we had it in more prime time. In other words, we really got the brunt of it because we had it at the beginning when it was so, it was so powerful. But more people died during Biden than during the Trump administration.
Yeah.
That's a big statement.
It is a big statement, and it's one that the mainstream media dodges, as you know. And
they don't like to talk about it. They don't like to talk about anything. They're totally crooked, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
In the meantime, I'm sitting in the Oval Office, so maybe they've lost. They were at 96% approval rating when I started out, and now I think they're at about 14%.
Yeah.
They're as crooked as our elections, which is saying something.
Well, they were still defending him yesterday, but let me move to a new topic here. National security, obviously an area I'd like to ask you about. You just mentioned Space Force. They mocked you.
Right.
They mocked you about Space Force when you created it, but of course, as soon as you were gone, they embraced it, right? Now you're focused on the Golden Dome missile system, similar to what's being used in Israel and the Middle East. And here's another question. You're also still looking at Greenland. I made a prediction on this program that before you left office, that Greenland would be under our operational control. It's still incredibly important to defending the Western Hemisphere, isn't it?
Yeah, you'll be right if you took that. Yeah, you'll be right. No, they want to do something very important. Greenland's important, from our standpoint, not from their standpoint, but from our standpoint. Yeah, you should make that bet, actually.
I did make that bet, and I think it's incredibly important. Look, your numbers are resilient. And so I want to ask you about this. I think maybe the biggest reason you connected with the people in Michigan and Pennsylvania and Georgia, many parts of this country, especially in outlying areas, it's your strong defense of Christian faith and traditional American values. I think there's a shift. You probably don't know this. I just had the #1 Christian song in America called One Nation in June. And I'm actually completing a book right now about providence and American presence. I'm writing a chapter about you as we speak.
Wow. Get me the information. I'll give it a truth.
Well,
make it a #1 best. Get me that information.
Well, I certainly will.
Okay.
But you have redefined, and I think this is incredibly important to millions of Americans. You have redefined the defense of faith in this nation at a critical time. You created the Faith Office, for example. And when you look at faith in America, and the way you were raised and where we are today, how important is this effort and everything else that you do?
I don't know. I look at countries, and the religion, I think, is a very important factor. And it doesn't have to be Christianity. That's our religion. But it's a very important factor in the success of a country. It's just, you look at some of these countries without religion, they're not happy places. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
And I think religion's a very important thing for our country, especially. We lost so much, and we're going back to it. You see the numbers of people that are joining the church and everything. They're setting records, just like the military is setting records. So we had the lowest deployment. We had the worst numbers of enrollment in military in the history of our country 2 years ago, and now we have the best numbers in the history of our country. We have waiting lists to get into the branches of the military. And 2 years ago, you couldn't get anybody to do it. That includes, by the way, police and firemen. You couldn't I mean, they couldn't fill their police jobs. They couldn't fill the fire jobs. Now they're at record levels. But the military, I'm proud of it because 2 years ago with the military, they couldn't get recruits. They couldn't get people to join. Every one of them. I think the Marines were the only ones that were actually pretty close to full. Now you can't get into any branch. It's very hard to get into the military. That's a great statement.
Well, we should raise the bar. We should make it hard to get in the military. We want the brightest and the best, don't we?
We do, and that's what's happening. And we're taking the people that we want. And our military is now based on merit, like everything else. We won a case that people don't talk about, but it's a very important case in the Supreme Court, and that's the merit system. You see kids get into college with half the talent of other people, and now you get into colleges based on your boards, based on your marks, based on all the things that you're supposed to. They were putting people in that didn't belong there, and it was very unfair to people. Very unfair.
Yeah.
So merit, and that's true with the military also, by the way. We're picking people now that are unbelievable. Our military is unbelievable.
They really are, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask where we stand today with Iran. We've been hitting them very hard. You have over the past 2.5 weeks. They make a deal, they renege. They make a deal, they don't honor it.
Right.
For 47 years.
Well, that's exactly where we are. We hit them very hard. They ask us not to do it, and they want to negotiate. We start negotiating. In the midst of a negotiation, they fire 5 rockets at us. We knock all of them down, and then we beat the hell out of them like last night. We beat the hell out of them, and we're not stopping either. So, no, we have a great military, amazing military. I built it. I built the military in my first term. Now, Biden gave away a lot of military, a lot of it. He gave away a lot, $300 billion. Can you believe it? And Europe would have paid for it. All you had to do is ask. Now they pay. We give them things and they pay. They didn't pay under Biden. But if you remember, I made a deal. In theory, we get back our money because we made a deal for rare earth, and we made a deal to go in, and we have the deal. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
It might be worth much more than $300 billion, but we can go, and Ukraine is very rich, very fertile soil in terms of rare earth. And we have a contract signed having to do with rare earth. We can go in there at any time we want and take pretty much whatever we want. That was a pretty good deal.
Last question on Iran real quickly, and I think it's the toughest question. I don't know if there is an answer because of the disingenuous nature of their negotiations, if you even want to call it that. But do you have any idea? Is it a month, a year? How long does it take to resolve what's happening?
So, always difficult to. Don't forget, we did Venezuela. Nobody talks about that. We did that in less than a day.
Yeah.
It was done in exactly 48 minutes to be exact, but less than a day. We lost nobody. With Iran, we're at 16, depending on definitions, we're at 16, 18 people, which is far too many, because one is too many. But when you look at Vietnam, you look at Afghanistan, you look at Korea, you look at all of these different wars. Vietnam went on for 21 years. We're in our 5th month. And they're saying, it's taking too long. The same people that kept us in Vietnam for 21 years are complaining. It's politics. It's terrible. Okay, with that being said, we have destroyed their military, and we continue to do so. We're in a very strong position. They make a deal and then they break it. They're very unreliable. So we'll see what happens. It's really bad to put it. I'm doing a much bigger job than I said I was going to do. I was going to go in and knock out the military, go in, go out. But then I realized if we do that, we have to have some form of maintenance. Otherwise, they'll rebuild. And the one reason I went in was Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Because you want to see turmoil, let them use. They would have used it too. That's why they're hitting everybody that nobody even thought they were going to hit. They're hitting Saudi Arabia. They're hitting all these countries that never thought they were going to be in play. They are in play. They would have used, if it weren't for me, Israel would not exist today. It would not exist because we took it out with the B-2 bombers when we wiped out they were 2 weeks away from having a nuclear weapon. That's why we send in the B-2 bombers. And the JCPOA, the horrible Barack Hussein Obama deal, they would have had a nuclear weapon 6-7 years ago. Israel would not exist today if it weren't for Donald Trump. So, you understand that.
I do.
But we did it twice. By the termination of that deal, that was a road to a nuclear weapon. Ours is a wall to a nuclear weapon. You won't have a nuclear weapon. That was a very important thing. And the other thing was the B-2 bombers a year ago when we blew up their nuclear capacity potential.
This all brings me back to just a couple other comments. I think it's $19.2 trillion of investment coming into this country. People don't give you credit for your sense of humor. You're a pretty funny guy, and a lot of people don't see that. But you talk about things like running in 2028. But seriously, bringing in $19.2 trillion means that the next guy in office gets a lot of credit for the work you did. I thought it was a pretty good line.
Well, I use it. I say, I'd love to be the next guy in office because you're going to be reporting, but you'll be on our side. You'll be one of the few that will do it because you've been so great. But the next guy in office is going to look like a super genius because all these plants will be open. All these jobs will be in here. It'll be a rebuilt country, and he's going to get credit. It's interesting. McKinley made a tremendous, through tariffs, made our country probably relatively the richest it ever was. And then Roosevelt came along, took the money and spent it. And Roosevelt should be given credit, but McKinley was never given the credit he deserves. They even took his name off Mount McKinley, which I put back. I put back. I hope you saw that.
I did.
But they took William McKinley. He made our nation extremely wealthy. He was then assassinated, and Roosevelt was the vice president. He went in and built the Panama Canal, which Jimmy Carter brilliantly gave away for $1. $1, can you believe it? It was the most expensive thing ever built in history relative to today's value.
Yeah.
It was like spending $4 trillion. They built the Panama Canal. We lost 38,000 people to the mosquito and snake. By the way, there's a snake. It's a viper. 5% to the snake, 95% to malaria, the mosquito. But we lost 38,000 men, in this case, I guess almost all men. And they went in and they got malaria. They got bit by the mosquito. They had to work under nets. We built it. It was the 8th wonder of the world. And then Jimmy Carter gave it away for $1.
Made no sense.
Very profitable. Made a lot of money.
Teddy Roosevelt.
A lot of money for another country. Doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
And China would love to have it.
I think when Teddy Roosevelt did that, it was the beginning of an age of America where they proved we could do great things. I share a birthday with Teddy Roosevelt, so I have a bit of an affinity for him. But he would get in there and he would get things done, and he believed in this country. We need more of that today, sir, don't we?
We need it, but we have it now. We have it now in spades. If you look, we're leading in AI. We're leading in everything, in every category. There's never been, I say the golden age. This is the golden age of America, actually. Now, we'll get you out of that war in a little while, but it'll be very positive, very important stop. I made that little journey right in the middle of the best numbers. We've had 78 all-time high stock markets. But think of it, right in the middle of the day where they came and stirred the market, I said, yeah, but we have to do something. We can't let that country. Other presidents should have done it for 50 years. Other presidents should have done it. But I said, we can't let that country have a nuclear weapon. Because you want to see everything end fast, give crazy people nuclear weapons. It'll end real fast.
Well, it doesn't
let it happen.
It feels like we're on the rise from where I sit. Your base is secure. The Democrats are putting up candidates that nobody understands, even Democrats. So I'll give you the last word here. Anything you want to say about the midterms, where we go from here, making sure that non-citizens will know that if they vote, they're going to be shown the door. Anything, sir?
Yeah, I love that idea, by the way. That's a very unique idea. A lot of people don't talk about that. And I'm going to look into that. Actually, that's a good way of getting them not to vote because they don't want to be thrown out. And it's just like, actually a very good idea. It's very simple. Look, we're a party of common sense. We're stronger now. We're respected all over the world now. We were laughed at. 2 years ago, we were a joke all over the world. And the king of Saudi Arabia said it best. He said, 2 years ago, I thought you were a dead country. I meant it. This was a year ago. He told me so. He actually said a year ago, but essentially, he said 2 years ago, you were a dead country. Nobody thought you could come back. Now you're the hottest country in the world. We're the hottest country in the world. And it took leadership. Joe Biden was Sleepy Joe. He was terrible. Crooked also, by the way. But what a terrible job they did, allowing 25 million people to come into our country. To me, that was the worst. They had the worst inflation. The prices, they talk about this affordability where they're the ones that caused the problem. But I've got prices coming down, and as soon as we're finished with this, energy will drop through the floor. And you'll see something that's amazing. But you already are. Prices are way down with the exception of the oil, and that'll go down. As you saw, when they thought we had a deal 2 weeks ago, the prices dropped like a rock, and that'll happen. But we want to have a real deal. I don't want to have a fake deal.
Mr. President, I know that you are busy as always. I'm not quite sure how you do it. Your stamina is remarkable. I know you're up early because the lights are on in the Oval Office, and I appreciate you taking the time here today to discuss all of these issues because they will all impact the midterms. Anything else you'd like to say? Last word to you.
No, just that you've been terrific, and I appreciate it. That's why I do the interview with you and not other people. But you have been a great guy, and, it's not really for me. It's for the country that you do it. It's common sense. The whole thing is common sense. It's, we don't want men and women's sports. It looks like we won that one pretty good. We got 90% of it, at least with the Supreme Court. But think of it, no transgender for, mutilization of our children. We don't want to have open borders. We want to have a strong military, so we're protected. Good education. We want things that are all common sense. And if you go by that, that's really the Republican Party. And I hope we do well in the midterms. It's sad that for whatever reason, the person in office rarely does well in the midterms, but maybe we turn that around. I hope we do.
Well, you've defied political gravity since 2015 from where I sit and from where a lot of people sit. They counted you out too many times. Remember, somehow Donald Trump always comes back and rings the bell. Sir, thank you for being here.
That's very nice. Thank you, and I'll speak again, and you just take care of yourself. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Greatly appreciate it. It's an honor.
Thank you. My honor.